I'm not gonna lie to you. When I saw that final sequence of this latest episode of ReZero, I teared up. Especially when Subaru put his head down and he saw the tears come out while he was laughing. It hit me. It hit me very, very hard. It's emotional because you gotta think about everything that has been presented since Season 2 began, but also from Season 1. Subaru has been continuously dealing with problem after problem by himself. Yes, he's gotten help from individuals. Rim is a good example. He's had help from, let's say, Crush's, entire team at the end of Season 1. But despite all of this and all this help here and there, Subaru technically has been going on this journey by himself. A lonely journey continuing with all of these problems pounding on his back. And for once in his life, instead of having something extremely sad or depressing being presented to him, he has something that's very uplifting, something that he just never expected to hear from any individual. It's the one thing that he really needed to hear, but at the same time, he never thought he would hear, because he didn't ever expect it, because he's went through his life so long without hearing those words, like, I'm your friend, that he just never thought he would hear it. Like, let's just back up and talk about why that ending is just so impactful. We gotta remember, a few episodes back, we found out a little bit more about Subaru's past. We found out about what he has went through before he came to this world, before he got returned by death. We know that he was living a life where he was, like, shut in. He wanted to be by himself. He felt like a failure. He wanted his parents to hate him, throw him out, whatever. He was continuously trying to be the jokester among everybody, the clown, to get people to laugh. And as he continued to have the antics build up more and more, eventually he realized nobody was around him. Nobody cared about him. He had nobody that was beside him as a friend. He couldn't call anyone a friend. He was continuously a lonely person. And when you just think about everything from that point, from what we found out, but also what he's been through, he's continuously been lonely. Yes, he's had love confessions from Rim, but once again, it's very different from fundamentally what a friend is, especially with Otto and what he's trying to do. And what makes the message so much more impactful is when Subaru's like, yeah, you're indeed my friend. And the reason why he says that to Otto is because he goes to what he feels should be in a person. For instance, Subaru, he likes to make people laugh. He's a jokester, and this is something that's about his personality that he's trying to work on, but the reason why he starts acting like a clown is to get people to notice him, to get attention, etc., to make it seem like, people are laughing. And when he has himself laugh from Otto saying, you're my friend, or whatever, he's like, yeah, you're indeed my friend. You got me to laugh. And he felt a connection there, but it goes much further than that. Subaru kind of realized where, Otto is coming from, because he knows how Emilia feels and how she's very confused about why Subaru loves her so much. To kind of explain this, we gotta think about it. Otto, he's only technically, in his mind, met Subaru once. He's never gotten to see the other loops that Subaru has went through. If we remember, when Otto was first introduced as a character within Season 1, he was on the carriage with Subaru while they were being chased by the White Whale, and you had Rim jump off to defend them, and then he forgot, Subaru got angry, punched the man in the face, and about maybe a minute later in that episode, he tosses Subaru off the carriage, and Subaru literally almost dies. But then he walks back to the mansion. We know the rest, what happens and all that, he dies, etc. But the point is that was Subaru's first encounter with Otto. However, in Otto's point of view, his perspective on Subaru, the first time he's ever met this man was when he was captured by, Petalugius, Beetlejuice's group, and he was saved thanks to Subaru's efforts with Crush and all that, and, getting freed when he was captured. And then, Subaru met him, he's like, this is where you've been, and, he saved his life. And in that moment, you gotta think about it. Technically, what Subaru did, he has no idea how much he helped Otto in that moment. He has no idea that that little hand extension just trying to help him out really did save Otto, and it meant quite a bit to him. It's probably the first time maybe in a long time he's maybe had someone that cared about him or even saved him like that, and he was just so blown away. And especially with Subaru continuously back-to-back trying to help him out, giving him favors, wanting him to meet Rosewall, giving him certain trading rights, etc., whatever the case may be, Subaru has continuously extended a hand to Otto, and Subaru's kind of completely unaware of this, and Otto's like, you're a really good man, you're helping me out. And that's the thing here, is that Subaru Subaru realized in that moment when he was talking with Oto, and Oto made him laugh and when he started crying, is because this is how Amelia is. For instance, Amelia is completely confused, because the reason why Amelia, is confused about why Subaru's like, you saved me and all that, is because Subaru was saved the first loop, but Amelia does not remember it because, his death. And that's the major message here, is that Subaru's like, yeah, you're indeed my friend. You're very similar to me. You made me laugh, and, I did something for you, and, I did something for Amelia, and, neither of us really realized just how impactful that really is. And there was a bond that was formed in that moment. It's an amazing scene, and it's something that Subaru desperately needs, because he's lonely. He's by himself. He literally has no one that he can really rely on. Let's, think about his situation throughout the episode. When he was imprisoned by Garfield, he couldn't do anything. He may have returned by death, but if he can't die, there's nothing he can do. For instance, we know he can get a checkpoint. We don't know how the checkpoints necessarily work. We just know that the checkpoints don't give a crap about the people around Subaru. It's just all tied to Subaru. So Subaru can get a checkpoint and people could stay dead. And in this case, Subaru realized another weakness to return by death is the fact that if he is restrained and the person doesn't want to kill him and time keeps ticking on by, he might get another checkpoint, which would result in him being completely screwed over. So that's the big message here, is that Subaru's been lonely, and he realized that because he had no one to really rely on to probably save him or help him out of a tight spot, that it's potentially possible if things would have kept going on like they were, a checkpoint would have been reached, and what Elsa was going to do at the mansion was probably going to become permanent. So that is a very big detail, and this is definitely something that Subaru needs. He needs someone that can actually have his back. He can depend on when he's not watching a certain area, and that's where Oto comes in. Like I said, powerful moment. I love it so much, and easily Oto is one of my favorite characters of ReZero. I've wanted to talk about him a lot since, I read the web novel, but I haven't because, anime, etc. But I'm just so happy I could finally talk about him. He's a fantastic character, and it's just amazing to see how much growth and how much of a change his character has had since we were first introduced to him. Because remember, once again, reminder, when we were first introduced to him, he tossed Subaru off the carriage to just die, to save himself. But look what he's doing now. He's literally sticking his neck out to save Subaru, to protect him. It just goes to show, though, that there's more to Oto's character than meets the eye, and what Subaru's done for him definitely goes far and beyond for the man. We just don't really understand why that is. But at this point, though, it's very good to see that Subaru actually has a friend, and he's no longer walking a lonely path by himself. Now, let's back up for a second, and let's actually talk about something that was very serious that happened at the beginning of the episode. I think it's incredibly important, but it also is something that I think many are going to be very confused about, because it's just like, wait, what just happened? What's this mean, etc. Beatrice has a gospel. That is something that is incredibly important, because that lets us know that she is somehow affiliated with a witch, because we know what the gospel means. It's given to one of the sin archbishops. We know how this is. We have seen greed, we have seen gluttony, and we have seen sloth, and we know they definitely all have a gospel. They all have this gospel, which is given to them, and they're able to see some bits of the future, basically. They're able to kind of see where events are going to lead. And in this case, that means that whatever Beatrice has, she has been following this gospel and dictating all of her decisions, everything she's done throughout this entire series, because of what the gospel says. So technically, she's like a puppet. She is a puppet with her strings attached to the gospel. She has no will of her own, and this explains why she has such an obsession of staying shut in within the library, because most likely, a long time ago, maybe in that gospel, it said, stay in the library and do not leave. And she's been waiting for maybe the book to actually say, hey, you can leave, you can go do something, but she obviously hasn't done it, because the book probably hasn't told her to leave yet. So she's been mindlessly following this gospel to do everything. And it's very clear now that she's very conflicted, because you see the emotion that she has within this episode. She basically starts to kind of break down, get very sad. She starts to try to belittle Subaru, saying, you're a human, I follow what my mother says, all these type of things. But the way she reacts, the way she presents herself to Subaru, it's completely contradictory to what she was saying. She was like, I follow this gospel and all that. But when you look at her emotions, there seems to be a lot more going on there. It seems like she's very conflicted to where she may not want to follow what the gospel says, but she's following it because she has her strings attached to it. So that's all she knows what to do. But at the same time, maybe what she did to save Subaru was against the gospel or wasn't even ever mentioned, and she did it regardless. Whatever the case may be, though, it's very clear that Beatrice has a very difficult attachment to the gospel, like a loving attachment. The way she grabbed the gospel showed a lot of care and love. She grabbed it as if she was holding an endearing friend. Like, she loved it. And that says enough about her mental state with the gospel and whoever gave this to her, if it was Sato or whatever. The point is that we know she has a connection with it, and that's not easy for her to break. But we can see that her emotions are definitely conflicted in certain areas when it comes to the gospel, when it comes to Subaru and other people within the mansion, which explains why she's just been so disconnected from everyone and why she doesn't really do anything. But it also explains why she's someone that isn't trying to tell anyone anything. Why she told Subaru, like, hey, you gotta go to Sanctuary. You gotta go there, and Rosewall will tell you everything you need to know. You remember when this season started, when Subaru was asking for answers on episode 2, he was like, what is going on here? What is these gospels? What's the witch's seed? Like, what is all this? What is really going on here? And Beatrice basically like, no, I'm not telling you. I can't tell you. You gotta go to Rosewall, which makes you wonder if that entire conversation, the reason why she didn't say anything was because the book told her not to say anything. So she was telling Subaru, you gotta go to Sanctuary, and you gotta go figure it out there. So there is some major stuff that was just presented, laid out on the table with this episode about her character. It makes her very fascinating. It makes you wonder now exactly what is really Beatrice and what is the gospel. Like, what is these certain actions she does? When is she actually being a caring, loving person? And when is she actually someone that's just mindlessly being a puppet to the book? Now, another big detail as well, though, is the fact that Elsa was able to enter into the room. This is something very crucial, and I think many are going to kind of not think about it too much because of just everything else that happened within that moment, especially with just Beatrice and the gospel, Subaru trying to literally end it, and just what he was saying about you potentially got me another checkpoint. There was a lot going on within that scene, so it's very obvious why some might kind of completely overlook the fact that Elsa walked into that room, because that is a very, very big detail that needs to be discussed. Remember, the only way to enter into that forbidden library where Beatrice is if you get lucky by opening up a door or something else, like Beatrice allows you to enter. But in this case, obviously that is not what happened, because clearly Beatrice didn't allow Elsa in there, because she was trying desperately to save Subaru for he couldn't die. She stopped him multiple times. So because of that, we know that she probably did not allow Elsa to enter into that library. And I highly doubt that the book actually said that, unless it did and we're unaware of it. But the point is that when you see Elsa enter into the library, it makes you wonder, how did she accomplish that? Did she get lucky, or was it something else? It's very clear that there has been a pattern the past few episodes, that there's been a lot of doors that are open up within the mansion, and clearly she went into the doorway that Subaru was trying to go into that has Rem in it, and we know what happened to Rem. It's sad what happened. Thankfully, we didn't get to see it, but basically, it lets us know that she went out of her way to leave that room and potentially open up other doors, because that's what she had to do. She literally walked into Rem's room, left Rem's room, opened up another door on repeat, and then she somehow got lucky and entered into this forbidden library. So once again, this lets us know that she is definitely aware of Beatrice's presence, which doesn't make sense. Nobody should normally know about Beatrice. That is something you should not know whatsoever. So what is necessarily causing this? Is there something else that we're unaware of? And, is Beatrice actually the one calling, Elsa to the mansion because of maybe the gospel saying, hey, call her to the mansion? Questions continue to build. But okay, besides that though, let's actually talk about Subaru's state of mind, because that's another thing that this episode really wanted you to key in on, but once again, there's just so much going on that you might not have noticed it. The first point was when Oto confronts Subaru towards the beginning of the episode, and he's like, Subaru, are you okay? And Subaru's like, yeah, I am. And he's like, I'm calm, I'm fine. And he's like, yeah, you're very calm and all that, which is kind of worrisome, because Amelia is going through a lot of problems right now. She's mentally unstable. She's really, really upset. And you're calm. You're not stressing out. You're not freaking out. And, you gotta imagine from their perspective of seeing Subaru, it doesn't make sense, because Subaru's always shown to care about Emilia. Even Otto has seen this. Think about everything that happened at the end of Season 1, and in the beginning of, Season 2, he has seen that Subaru desperately does care about Emilia. So, when he sees Subaru acting unnaturally calm, there's just something very weird going on there. Why is he acting calm? Why does he feel like he's not caring too much about what's going on with Emilia? Why is he throwing Ram on top of Emilia to be able to watch over her and, make sure she's A-okay? There's a lot of things that shows that Subaru is very desensitized. He's disconnected from Emilia. And this is something that you need to really think about. It's because he's technically seen Emilia's situation 3 times now. He's came back 3 times now, and he's got to see her in that state of distress. And every time he comes back and he sees her, you see that he doesn't do the same thing. He kind of gets a little more detached from her. Like, he's not really caring about her current mental situation. He just continues to move on to figure out what's going on with, Elsa and the stuff at the mansion. He's not here. He's not currently there with everything going on in Sanctuary. He's not really caring too much about it. He just wants to get on past it before he can get over to the mansion, because that's currently, in his mind, what's more important, is to get to the mansion, save Beatrice, save Frederica, save Petra, save all of them. That is what's on his mind. It is not there in Sanctuary, and it makes it fundamentally very clear when Otto confronts him and he's like, you're very calm, you're not caring about Emilia, that he's very detached from the situation. And it goes even further than that. It's also showing that he's very detached from his deaths as well. Because if we think about how it was at the beginning of the series, he was continuously someone that was always grabbing himself when he got hurt. He was like, oh, it's okay, all that. He was like, everything's fine. But obviously, after constant deaths, eventually you would grow numb to dying. It's just something that does happen, technically. It's like if you repeat something over and over, eventually you're going to get so desensitized and detached from it, you're going to be able to do it without thinking and not really caring too much about it or much emotion or whatever. In this case, that's kind of what's happening to Subaru, is that he shows that he doesn't really have an attachment anymore to the thought of dying or, the weight of maybe people's mental states. He's more worried about the objective of saving people than actually worrying about the situation going on around him, with everybody being worried, upset, etc. For instance, Emilia. And so it shows that he's not really weighed down upon Elsa killing him anymore. He's just now thinking about his plans of what to actually do next. So take it as you will, but it shows that pieces of Subaru are definitely cracking and shattering, and he's losing what was once himself. He's not acting the same Subaru that we knew from the beginning of the story. He is definitely becoming colder than he once was, which makes sense because of just how Return by Death is. It is technically a curse, and when you think about it, you would probably eventually lose yourself slowly and go a little bit mad if you continue to die. Now, one thing I do want to make fundamentally clear, though, before I wrap up this little segment, is that it's not fully Subaru's fault either for being disconnected or desensitized to Emilia's situation and even deaths, because, recently, he just found out that it's potentially possible he can get a checkpoint that would make it to where someone could permanently stay dead. Look at what happened to Rim. So obviously, he's continuously being worried. He's fearful of time ticking beyond a certain point. He gets a checkpoint. So, for example, he thinks that maybe like someone like Beatrice, Petra, Frederica, all of them could potentially stay permanently dead. He's constantly in worry about his checkpoints now. It's no longer just about trying to not die or trying to save people. He's now worried about Return by Death literally messing him up and getting him stuck in a situation to where he no longer can save anyone. So it is not fully Subaru's fault either why he is focusing on just saving people instead of really focusing on, let's say, Emilia's mental state. But okay, let's talk about Garfield now. So Garfield is a very important piece to this episode, and we get to see another example of Garfield's attitude that makes another shift in comparison to the previous 2 episodes. Now, I want to reinstate kind of how different they are. In the first episode that we saw Garfield's situation before Subaru died, Garfield was very cooperative. He worked with Subaru, he acted like a buddy. Subaru was very kind with him. He handled the situation kind of with care. It didn't seem like he really trampled on Garfield or anyone else's intentions. The second loop, it showed that Subaru was, once again, disconnected. He was very disconnected from Sanctuary. He didn't really care too much about Emilia's situation. He wanted to rush over to the mansion, and he acted like doing the trial was very easy. It's okay, it's easy to overcome your past. It's kind of like Subaru really kind of crapped all over the message of what those trials are, but also maybe their way of life or whatever. He did something that obviously angered Garfield, and Garfield did not trust him whatsoever, the way he acted. And then we get to this episode, and we get a little bit more clarification to why Garfield has continuously changed his attitude towards Subaru with every single loop. In this episode, it is revealed that Subaru has the witch's scent, the miasma, coming off of him, which we've known about since the very beginning of the story. We've known ever since the second arc that when Subaru continuously dies and he forms from a new loop, the miasma from the witch's scent continues to get stronger and stronger. And obviously, since he's died about 3 times now consecutively, it makes sense now why the stench is probably unbearable, and why someone like Garfield, that is obviously a demi-human, would be like, I don't trust you. Especially when he walks into the witch's tomb and he comes out smelling real rank like a witch. So it's just like, yeah, it makes sense why someone wouldn't trust him, or they would start to slowly not trust him because of walking into something like that. Was he cursed? Is he possessed? You know, what is really going on there? And Garfield's smelling that scent from him. He's like, there's something going on here. It's very apparent that you are probably one of those witches cultists, and you're someone that is not here for anything good whatsoever. And it makes a lot of sense. Think about it. We got to think about what, you know, Beetlejuice said to him at the beginning of Season 1, or in the middle of Season 1, actually. He's like, the scent coming off of you is very similar to a sin archbishop. And he's like, you definitely are very powerful. You have a lot of love around you. And so we know that because of these deaths, it's clear that he most likely is back to that level of the witch's scent. And Garfield's like, you're obviously a danger. You're a very big problem. You definitely are doing something, and I don't trust it. So them acting like the artist Subaru makes a lot of sense, but at the same time, Garfield was willing to let it slide. He even admits, though, he was going to let Subaru slide, even with that miasma coming out of him, until Subaru tried to do something. And soon as Subaru said that he was going to take the trial in Amelia's place, once again, Garfield got a little bit upset. He grabbed Subaru and imprisoned him. We know the rest of that. So it lets us think about this situation. Okay, so why would he do this? Why would Garfield, once again, get very upset when Subaru kind of suggests something like this? Because in the last loop, he got upset when Subaru pitched in. He's like, hey, you know, I'll take it for Amelia. And then Garfield's like, whoa, I've been letting you talk for so long now, and Amelia is the only one that's going to be taking this trial. I will not let you take this trial. And then you see this episode, and once again, Garfield takes it a little bit more aggressively, and he stops him. He's like, no, you are not taking this trial. And he's like, Amelia will have to do this. So it makes you wonder, is Garfield really wanting Sanctuary liberated? Or is it really have to be Amelia? Does it really have to be Amelia that is taking this trial? And if that is the case, why? Why does Amelia have to take this trial? Why can't Subaru take this trial? Why does Garfield get so angry when Subaru's like, I can take it, it'll be fine, we'll overcome it? There is many things you can grab from that. Now, another thing to really mention is something that Ruzu said to Subaru as well. When Subaru was talking to them before he said, hey, I'll take the trial, Ruzu's like, you're saying that you don't want Amelia to take the trial, so you're protecting her from harm and all that, and you're wanting her to not get hurt, so you're protecting her from kind of overcoming her past. And Subaru's like, no, I want her. One day she will have to overcome her past, but for now is not the time. We gotta get out of here. We gotta be able to move on to the mansion. That's kind of what Subaru was trying to say in his own words, and once again, this shows how he's detached from the situation. He doesn't want Amelia to have to take the trial, because at this point, it's clear that Subaru doesn't believe in Amelia being able to pass the trial. He doesn't believe that Amelia most likely will be able to overcome her past. She may be able to one day, but he was pretty much saying, at this point in time, she's not going to be able to do it. And so we need to get out of here. I need to be able to liberate Sanctuary to move on to the next objective. So it's showing that Subaru truly does not trust Amelia at this point. He doesn't really think she can overcome it, and that he is willing to take it just to get out. And maybe he like he said, she might one day be able to overcome her past, but for now, she's definitely not going to be able to. He does not have faith in her whatsoever. So that is definitely a big deal with that conversation that he had with Ruzu. Now, what else to get into? I guess another scene is when he is imprisoned. So one of the last big details that is within this episode is when he is imprisoned by Garfield, you see Subaru stick out his tongue, and then Garfield gags him and all that, stops him from being able to do anything. Subaru's obviously trying to bite his tongue. He was trying to get out of there, because he knows if he's bound, it can't do much. He's stuck. You know, he can't use return by death, and that it was a big deal. It shows that Subaru is willing to just throw away his life just to be able to reset because of his situation, but Garfield wasn't going to allow him, which also shows that Garfield isn't entirely heartless. He did not actually want Subaru to die or kill him. He could have. Even though Subaru has this "which is my asthma" coming off and that smells like a sin archbishop, he wasn't wanting to kill Subaru. So that is something very big. It seems like Garfield deep down has somewhat of a heart. He isn't all bad. He seems somewhat of a good guy. And it's very clear because he stopped Subaru from trying to be done with it. He could have easily secretly got rid of Subaru, but he did not. So that does say a lot about Garfield's personality, which, speaking of personality and all that, we now know that he is 50% demi-human, while Frederica, however, is a quarter demi-human, which explains why she's able to leave Sanctuary. If you're not, complete half-blood of human and demi-human, then you can leave Sanctuary. So if you're a quarter, you're fine. If you're a quarter human, you can leave. If you're a quarter demi-human, you can leave. If you're a full human, you can leave. If you're a full, I guess demi-human, you can leave. That was the point that was revealed, is that Garfield was actually half, which means that he's probably fundamentally stronger than Frederica when he goes beast form, which we kind of see happening towards the end of the episode. But I think that's about it, though. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And I love you guys. Be safe. Stay healthy. Chibi out.